Good morning. First, I'd like to say thank you to admin for allowing us to dress up this year. I don't know about your classes, but the sophomores and I, we had a lot of fun with it. Here's a pic of what we decided to dress up as. Teachers, if you'd like, you can send me a pic of your class, and I'll share it with everyone next week. So, last week I mentioned that the Honolulu Marathon had been canceled this year, but I didn't really talk about how that affects me personally. See, I ran my first marathon back in 2015 because Mrs. Takahashi wanted a training partner to help her stay motivated. I was more than willing to help a friend, and she sweetened the deal by paying my entry fee. I did okay, and I decided to set a personal goal of finishing the marathon under 4 hours before my 40th birthday. Well, I turned 40 at the end of the year, and looks like it's not going to happen. Now, I will admit that when I was a student, I hated running. To sort of rip off green eggs and ham, I did not like running when the distance was short. I did not like running when the distance was long. I did not like running at all. Okay? But one of the things that I learned and began to appreciate about running as I got older is that while it is certainly physically taxing, the real challenge is that of the will. During my first marathon, while I was running towards Hawaii Kai, I remember seeing a sign that said, "Remember, you paid to do this." And I thought, ha, that's so funny. And then I hit mile 17 around Costco, right where the turnaround is, and I immediately began to rethink some of my life's decisions. When I saw the same sign on the way towards Kahala, as I struggled to keep one foot in front of the other, it wasn't funny anymore. What kept me going was thinking about my family. My grandpa and my dad are both accomplished runners and swimmers, and I didn't want to quit and tarnish their legacy. I also didn't want to be a quitter in the eyes of my kids, so I kept going, thinking about those who had gone before me and those who would come after me. When you start to get demoralized, whether it's in school or a sport or maybe a class for a musical instrument or even during a video game, what helps motivate you? Teachers, go ahead and pause the video and ask your students. If you want, you can share some of the ways your students get motivated with me, and then I'll share them with everyone next week. Now, like I said, I would think about making my dad and my grandpa proud when I was thinking about stopping the marathon mid-race. And there's a passage in the Bible that makes a similar point when it comes to running the race that is life. Hebrews 12:1-2 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith." Like I said last week, whenever we see a therefore, we look up to see what it's there for. And in chapter 11, the author of Hebrews tells the stories of some of the heroes of faith, like Abraham and Sarah and Moses. Now, Hebrews compares the life that we are currently living to a long-distance race in which those who have gone before in the faith are watching us run, cheering us on as they eagerly wait for us to reach the finish line. For those who are currently running the race, we can look to their example and persevere to the prize that also awaits us in Christ Jesus. Now, this Sunday is the traditional Christian observance known as All Saints' Day, in which we honor those who have gone before us in the faith. Last year, we watched a video about one of my heroes in the faith, Pastor Taj Win. And this year, I'd like to share with you the story of another hero of mine who is also part of our Kainiki Christian Ohana and recently went to be with the Lord. You may have never met him, but what he accomplished here at KCS has definitely benefited us all. If you go up on the lanai where the high school students eat lunch, there's a plaque near the side door that says, the Gene and Mary Smith Fellowship Lanai. Gene was an elder at Kainiki Christian Church and was the project manager for the construction of our worship center 20 years ago. It might be hard to imagine, especially since many of us haven't been in the chapel in quite some time, but the building itself was literally half its size. If you were to cut a line from the front door to the baptistry, everything on the left did not exist before the year 2000. Gene oversaw the construction on behalf of the church, working with the architect and the contractor to make sure that things were done right. Speaking of doing things right, the lanai originally did not have a roof. It was to be an open-air lanai. However, Gene insisted that if it was going to be a place of fellowship, it needed to be covered to protect people from rain. He pushed it through the elders' board, and now we get to enjoy the lanai without worrying about being rained on. Now, the project to increase the size of the worship center was not cheap, It actually began during a period of economic recession. Gene believed that increasing the size of the building would help us to reach more people, reach more families, more children for Jesus, so much that he sold his Jaguar E-Type, which is an iconic British sports car, and gave all the money to the building fund, thus putting his money where his faith was. On the construction site, he was seen as the wise sage whose presence would bring calm to the workers there. He would fearlessly climb scaffolding, check rebar ties, and even went up onto the roof to inspect it and determine the location for the cross. Did I mention that he was 80 years old when he did all this? Now, you might be thinking, man, this Gene guy sounds like a super saint. Well, yes and no. Yes, because of the one who saved him and lived within him and with whom he walked. And no, he's just a regular guy running the race that was set before him. See, Gene grew up in Idaho Falls, Idaho, the grandson of a Methodist minister whose parents went to church because it was a socially proper thing to do. So how does a boy from Idaho end up in Hawaii? Well, he enlisted in the Army, served 1 year as a PFC, that's private first class, and was then accepted into officer candidate school. He served in the Army during World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War, eventually retiring in Hawaii. Since his job in the Army was acquisitions, which is getting the right food to the right place at the right time in order to feed the soldiers, his post-Army career was managing Navy clubs, the Officers Club, the Enlisted Club, that sort of thing. Now, when he left Idaho, he left any semblance of faith behind. When he was in Germany, he married a Catholic girl, but only went to Mass on Easter and Christmas Eve. That was all about to change. Mary Smith, before she was a Smith, applied for a job working for Gene, who conducted the interview. During the interview, she said that she was willing to do any job because she really needed the money, and would work Monday through Saturday, but could not work on Sunday. Would work Monday through Saturday, but could not work on Sunday because that was church day. Gene was intrigued by her Christian devotion, and she eventually became his entertainment coordinator due to her background as a dancer. Since they were both in marriages that were rocky, their interactions were few and strictly professional. Eventually, both of their first marriages ended and they began dating. And by dating, I meant they called each other on the phone a lot since they were both single parents and really couldn't get out much. Gene wanted to see her, but because of his job, his only day off was Sunday. Since Mary had made it clear that Sunday was church day, if he wanted to see her, he would have to go to church. So he went to church. Not long after, Sundays weren't enough. So Gene asked Mary if he could see her on Wednesdays. Well, Wednesday night was Bible study. So if he wanted to see her, he would have to go to Bible study. So he went to Bible study. He eventually was baptized in the faith by the Bible study leader and was mentored by Pastor Jerry, who is currently our administrator here at Kaimuki Christian. He really loved being at Kaimuki Christian and all the relationships he developed, specifically his relationships with Pastors Harold, of whom Gallagher Hall is named, Ron Arnold, of whom Arnold Hall is named, and Jerry Hubbard. In fact, it was his relationship with Pastor Harold that would lead to one of his most notable ministries. At the request of Joni Gallagher, who wanted Pastor Harold to find a hobby during retirement, Gene taught Pastor Harold how to golf. Soon, Gene thought that there would be people who maybe wouldn't go to church, but they'd go golfing. So he invited a couple of guys to go golfing with Harold and him. Eventually, Gene invited them to church, and they went because Gene. The following week, while they were carting from hole to hole, they would ask him questions about faith. Mary said, his slow and steady approach to sharing the gospel is his legacy. He tried to simply live the faith, which would open up opportunities to share the faith. If he had the answer, he would speak. If he didn't, he said that he would check. He was a slow talker, so it made him a better listener. So what can we learn from Gene's example as we strive to run the race that is set before us? First, it doesn't matter what your age is, whether you're 80, 18, or 8. You can serve God in your own unique way, wherever and whenever you are. How you do it is going to be different depending on your life stages and circumstance, but as Mary said during my interview with her, if the Lord puts something on your heart, go get it. Don't wait for someone to come along and tell you about something. Ask. Go. Look. Maybe it might be something. Second, sharing the gospel doesn't have to be complicated. I've been doing this job long enough that I've heard the same answers from students to the same questions. And I know the answers are well intended, but they're either too general or overly complicated. For instance, one of the answers I get to the question about what Christians should do with their lives is tell people about Jesus. Well, yes, but that can seem rather intimidating, and it's pretty nonspecific. Perhaps, like Gene, you could live your faith the best that you can and invite people into things that you already do. Maybe it's shooting hoops. Maybe it's playing video games. But invite people into your space. If they ask you about the way that you are, you have an opportunity to share. And if you don't know the answers, go find out. Hey, you know where to find me. Now, I have to admit that I've been less than forthcoming with you. Gene Smith was not just an elder. He was part of the group who hired me and oversaw my work. He was my grandpa. He was my grandpa, not by blood, but by love. What do I mean by that? Well, though I was of no blood relation to him, he always treated me as one of his own. I remember one time as a kid, we were visiting Hawaii for the summer, and Grandpa Gene was driving me to VBS in his Jag. We were driving with the top down, and we passed the university exit. He dropped it into gear, and we took off, doing about 100 miles an hour, the wind blowing through my hair. And it was actually because of him and his Car and Driver magazines that ignited my love for sports cars and led me to pursuing a degree in journalism so I could write for the auto mags. Now later, when we would have family dinners at my tutu's house, I would always go into the TV room to report to the major. He would first give me a handshake that suggested he could rip my arm out of its socket if he so desired. And then he would ask me how things were going at the church, and then when I transitioned over, he would ask how things were going at the school. He was an elder, so I knew that he had an idea of what was going on and how things were going, but he asked anyway. He would always tell me that he was proud of me, that he's hearing good things about me, and to keep up the good work. Grandpa Gene has finished his race. With his and all of the examples of those who have gone before us in their faith, in our memories, and our focus on Jesus, let us run the race before us with endurance. For me, I look forward to the day when, like the final stretch of the Honolulu Marathon, where the crowd is cheering for each runner to finish, I'm looking for that day when I cross the line and see all of my loved ones, including my Grandpa Gene, who I imagine will greet me with one of his famous bear hugs and congratulate me on a job well done. But until then, let's run.